What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine. Shout out to my guy, Jacob Punturi, and his headphones. We are here live. Find us on YouTube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Jacob, we're here. We apologize for the delay. We got some big news. Aaron Rodgers spoke today, and what appears to be one of the last times that Aaron will speak, because after this season, he plans to, one, hang it up, and two, never appear in the public eye ever again. We're diving into all his takeaways from the Pat McAfee show, an outside report on Jaylen Ramsay that we think is very interesting, and it's Tuesday, which means that it's Overreaction Tuesday. Shout out to all you guys. Jacob, how you feeling, my friend?
I'm great. I'm so sorry that Noah kept us from starting on time. It's hard. It's hard for me too, guys. Don't worry. But no, I'm feeling good. I'm trying not to die again in this heat, as we already know. But beyond that, I'm good. And I don't want to delay us any further. Noah, my man, let's talk about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. Please.
Let's talk about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. I will point out one more time that you have downgraded from a hoodie to a long sleeve shirt, as if sleeves that are shorter than your elbow do not exist. That's all right. That's all right. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. Aaron Rodgers popped up on the Pat McAfee show today. That was breaking news yesterday, so much so that it was the only talk of the town, really across all sports, after the Knicks Indiana Pacers finals were over. The MLB trade deadline's coming, but we are in the abyss. There is nothing happening in the sports world, and Aaron Rodgers decided to jump on ESPN, talk a little football, clarify his marriage, and use the word wife, which I think was very significant in that interview. Remind everybody that nobody should care, and kind of get, going to be very honest, a lot of us very excited about what's to come in 2025 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot to dive into. We'll break it down into different parts here as we move forward, but I'll ask you a general question to start things off. Your biggest takeaway, your outlook on Rodgers on the McAfee show, outside of the fact that there are more pictures of him on the beach, and I'm not going to lie to you, I don't even know where my Bluetooth headphones are these days, because ever since they started popping up, I'm nothing but cords all the time. Something about them just had me switch. I couldn't tell you what. What was your biggest takeaway?
He's going back to stereo, folks. But my biggest takeaway from all of this is that I believe Aaron Rodgers is all in a way that I maybe had doubted a couple of weeks ago whenever he first signed his contract with the organization. I think we knew this was, going to be kind of the last year, the last hurrah for Aaron Rodgers, but how much does he have left in the tank? I had no clue. No one does. And we still don't fully know, but I think that he is determined to go out, in a winning fashion. What exactly does that look like? Again, we don't know, but I think he is more all in. The stuff about him getting people out to Malibu, that's sort of like more time off the field connecting with the rest of his new teammates. There's a lot that I heard that made me feel like he is taking a lot of steps to bring the locker room together and be a part of a winning sort of recipe in Pittsburgh for the 2025 season. So overall, very positive. I do have to say, aside from him, what I would call complaining about being too much in the limelight, like, I got this little violin for you. If you're, maybe he can buy
highest
an extra
paid NFL
pillow.
player of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Oh.
Of all time.
So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's a big, I don't know. I got fired up. Like, listening to it, I just felt like the energy was right, that, maybe it was Tone Diggs saying things like the city of Pittsburgh appreciated you saying us instead of me, and winning 7 instead of the final one, you're second. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers to me seems like an all-in guy. It seems like, as we dove into this stuff, and I don't know him personally, so I know nothing outside of public appearances, even ones I was in attendance for. It felt as if coming into all this, I was very interested to learn who Aaron Rodgers is, and I am very interested to learn who Aaron Rodgers is. but I thought it was going to go a little differently than what it is so far. So far, it's a very team friendly. I'm the guy. I'm the quarterback. I understand what that means, and I'm going to do what I need to do as a quarterback. Fully understands the business of it and what his abilities are, what his role is, how important his role is, and the things he needs to do in it. And that is not what I thought was going to happen in my first impression with Aaron Rodgers. So I got to say, I am fired up. There are a couple of things that he talked about that really had me fired up when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where things are. They'll meet in Malibu, a couple of them. I would imagine that's Calvin Austin, DK Metcalf, who's working out at UCLA, probably Pat Freiermuth, maybe Roman Wilson makes his way out there as well.
Probably Cordero Patterson.
Maybe Cordero Patterson. I think, to be honest, his discussions on guys like Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington and the tight ends, most fired up, most excited I've been about the possibility of those guys and what they can do in years. And it really does. Like, we could talk and he's going to say it 4 billion times. Mercedes Lewis. Darnell reminds me of Mercedes Lewis. Yeah, I get it. It is the first time in a long time, and really Pat's entire career outside of the 1 year with Ben, where you're looking at it going, there's a quarterback here that's going to use the tight ends. The tight ends are going to be very significant. And to be honest with you, I could see that, and I tried to say it last year that Pat was going to have a breakout season. It might be time to really start hyping that train up again. The tight ends is the position group that stood out to me. Anything that stood out to you player-wise? I mean, he spoke a lot about a lot of different things. DK Metcalf was obviously a big one as well. Jaylen and Kaleb. Your thoughts on the tight ends after Aaron, and who else you're fired up about after today?
Well, I can't help but to agree with Aaron Rodgers about the comparison with Darnell Washington. I think you just having a big body like him that a team knows how to properly utilize is going to pay dividends for the Steelers offense. I've been a supporter of Pat Freiermuth. I've been wanting to see this breakout all-pro season from him ever since he first came into the league, but it does feel more possible. It feels within, within reaching distance. It feels like maybe that could we see Pat Freiermuth hit, somewhere around double digits in touchdowns if everything goes according to plan? I don't know, but I think we are getting the sense that there are higher expectations emerging and creeping up for the Steelers in 2025 the closer we get to training camp. The other thing that really stood out to me, I don't know if you were going to jump into this, so forgive me, but it stood out to me that Rodgers said openly that he and Tomlin were talking, I think it was weekly, or I forget the exact verbiage that he used, but They were speaking very often, let's call it, throughout the entire process, going back from his visit, cruising in on the back roads to all the way to signing. So, the fact that there is a relationship there, and it tells me that they have been planning, they have been in communication, obviously, and they have been, on the same page for months about what they expect and what they are going to do for the 2025 season. So that sticks out to me as sort of maybe an advantage that we didn't even consider, because we were wondering, is anything even done yet or official? But maybe they were already, making their war plan, so to speak, behind the scenes.
I agree. I think that's huge. Like, that's my thing on the Rodgers was maybe didn't have the playbook in his hands, but was aware of the situation. The Steelers were aware of the situation. Arthur Smith was planning for Aaron Rodgers to show up and to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, to me, having that preparation, having that time, that ability, that understanding gave them a head start on a situation that everybody is worried about. It took too long. Like, you missed some very important steps along the way. But I do think that having that is huge. I also think that, it's wild because Mike T and Omar Khan tend to, I don't want to say lie, fib the media every once in a while, which, it's fun. It's a fun cat and mouse here. It's a good time.
Yeah.
In them saying continuously, yeah, there's been, we're talking constant communication, blah, blah, blah. You're just going, no, there's not. And there were reports of silence. I mean, I think it's pretty revealing that this was exactly how they said it was, that Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers were checking in and talking as if this was going to happen for a long time. And when it finally came together and Aaron was on a place where, again, I don't think that, I really do think that when he went into this, it was, I have to see what happens in my personal life before I could actually say yes or no to a football team. And the Steelers understood that, while also understanding that chances were it was going to work out where Aaron's going to be on a football team in 2025. To me, sticking together, kind of working through that, I mean, it just shows that both sides are very committed, which again shows me that Aaron Rodgers is super committed to the situation. Plus, did you catch him say 2-a-day workouts? The dude's 41 years old doing 2-a-day work. My calf right now, okay? Every chance, I'm just sitting here under the desk, just stretching it out the whole time for how brutal the pain is from doing nothing. I golfed 2 days ago, 9 holes. It wasn't even hard. Absolutely wild, the 2-a-day workouts. But I agree with you with Mike Tomlin. Will Howard is the other big one here. Will Howard and his words. I mean, to me, he spoke very highly of Will, but what stood out was not what he sees in Will or who Will is, because I think all of those things are already there and we're aware of. It's the almost like a challenge that he presented to himself to get Will to a place where he is the next guy. We've had these conversations. We've had people who have fired back at us, and we have had to disagree with on Will could be the guy with time under Aaron Rodgers. I think today is the first time that I viewed it differently than Aaron's just going to be a mentor. And I truly did look at it. And my understanding now is that Aaron really embraces this as a challenge, which to me, I don't know, maybe puts him on a bigger pedestal, gives him a little bit of a head start, I would say. Did it do the same for you? Because to be honest, I mean, I was fired up about what it was the first, and I've used fired up too many times in this podcast. I was going to say excited, but that's just what it is. Like, it's the first time that I really viewed Will Howard in that situation totally different than, he's a 6th round rookie and Aaron Rodgers is cool and probably going to help him, but how much could he help him? Maybe a lot.
I can certainly understand the optimism growing there, truly. I think this is unfortunately where my optimism started to kind of fade. Not that I don't think this is possible, not that I don't think Will Howard is capable. Again, we're not to rehash the same conversation that we have had and will continue to have surrounding the Steelers' recent 6th round pick. All that being said, I like that Aaron Rodgers clearly was trying to, in my estimation, set a very optimistic sort of like agenda and like set mindset in this sort of hiatus until training camp. I think part of that is incorporating this rookie quarterback who a lot of people see potential in, a lot of people see a lot of upside in, and a future with the organization. I don't know how much, once the season gets started, that challenge remains a priority for Rodgers and the rest of the team. I think the priorities drastically shift to winning football games, and I think making sure your 6th round pick is up to speed and sort of in place to take over the keys to the car is way down the priority list once the season actually starts. For right now, it's incredible. It's wonderful that this sort of mentorship bond is continuing to grow at a nice sort of steady pace. But it didn't get me as, fired up as you. There were lots of this conversation that did, elicit optimism for me. This particular part was not one of them.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't have a response to that one. You look at Will Howard right now, to me, I hope turns into something. It does not, again, like, let's not sit here and think that it changes the plans of 2026 in the NFL draft. To me, it's just like, look at, I think that Aaron Rodgers is a guy that's won a Super Bowl, 4 MVPs. He's the highest paid NFL player, of all time in the existence of the NFL, which is wild. And he's saying, hey, this season I want to win a Super Bowl and I want Will Howard to be great. Okay, well, that's awesome. You want to know who I don't think is going to be great because he didn't say his name? Skylar Thompson. And I just, I'll say one name that didn't get as much airtime today as I thought. Tell me if I'm looking too far into this. Calvin Austin didn't come up almost once.
That is disappointing. It's especially disappointing
Yes.
for this podcast who, we did start the #1 fan club for Calvin Austin. You can, catch my news blast coming out daily. Just kidding. But I think it was disappointing that he's, maybe not in the first sentence, like the immediate, sort of first couple of words from Rodgers. But, I'm not losing hope yet. I think there is so much for Calvin Austin to still prove on the football field that it almost is sort of another galvanizing moment. It's another sort of like way to encourage him or motivate him to, step up into that #2 role. It is still totally up in the air. It is completely up for grabs. And so, he may not be the #2 offensive threat in Pittsburgh right now, but he could be in a month or two's time. And I think the challenge is being laid out for him further here.
I agree. Did you catch his, and then we'll move on after this one. Did you catch his little dig at the Pittsburgh Steelers? Kind of a hint that TJ Watt is, coming back, getting a deal. Once we get our future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year linebacker back. I was like, oh, Aaron, what you know, pal? He knows everything everybody else knows, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get a deal done with TJ Watt. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers. To be honest, dude, shout out to Aaron Rodgers. Today was a good for June 24th, when there is nothing. I was literally in a meeting where we were talking about how there is nothing happening, and we just got to ride the wave of coast it out, go on vacation with your family, sleep a little bit, you know what I mean? Whatever you got to do before training camp. Aaron Rodgers is giving us life, and I'm going to be honest, very appreciated to the quarterback and the guy that we can't talk about for the next 5 weeks because he made that very I don't want to be talked about for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
Dude, there's nothing else. Chances are we're going to talk about you 1 or 2 times. Just once or twice, but then we'll call it a day. All right, let's move it on. Adam Schefter dropped a little bit of a bomb today, saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he dropped 2 of them. He tried to counter it, and I'm going to be honest. I believe the first part, the second part, I think he's reaching on. Said that the Pittsburgh Steelers did call the Miami Dolphins to check in on Jaylen Ramsay in the corner and to see if he's available. He also said that it's very unlikely that they end up with Jaylen Ramsay in 2025. I'm going to be honest with you, okay? If they called, I don't think it's very unlikely that they're going to end up with Jaylen Ramsay this season. Maybe unlikely, maybe not favorable. They called. Very unlikely. They're on the board. The Pittsburgh Steelers have made themselves known. And that's all they did. They showed their hand to say, I mean, we're going to at least test and see what's out there, because if it works out, great. Well, what if it works out? What if the Pittsburgh Steelers have an opportunity to actually make this thing happen? And to me, this is the first sign of, if it does, if it could, which you never know in the NFL. People said the same thing about DK Metcalf until it happened. The Pittsburgh Steelers have said, hey, we're in the running. We are a team that has shown interest on the guy that, I don't know, maybe we've already ruled out, shouldn't have ruled out. Do you believe, Adam Schefter, has your mind changed on the Jaylen Ramsay? Because you're not totally out on Jaylen Ramsay and the Steelers, but you're not optimistic of it. Did it have any influence knowing that they've made a phone call to the Dolphins?
It keeps me just about the same, to be as boring as possible in my response. The key, I don't necessarily agree that, with your disagreement with Schefter, to try and put that together as cleanly as possible. I think the Steelers make calls the same way that I disagreed with the notion that the Steelers were not interested in Jair Alexander. Whether I'm wrong or right in terms of who, if anyone reached out or anything, I have no confirmation. But I don't buy that they had no interest. I don't buy that it's, quote unquote, very unlikely that he arrives. I just think that it's still not the most likely possibility. And I think that, the Steelers making a call does not sort of increase my hope in a certain player arriving, via signing or a trade or whatever the situation is. I just think the Steelers are, again, one of the best organizations and one of the most thorough organizations when it comes to evaluating opportunities. They are not always the the quickest to pull the trigger. They often, miss on opportunities that a lot of us are like clamoring for them to make, but they are always in on everybody. There's no doubting that. There's no faulting them for saying. You could never fault them or say that they are not in on somebody, because they always are making calls, doing their due diligence. But I don't think they're really going to land him any more today than I did yesterday. I think they're not out on him, but not, still remains an unlikely scenario that an unlikely outcome. Excuse me.
I will say that a lot of it depends on, and I agree with you. Like, I don't think I'm going to bank on Jaylen Ramsay ending up in Pittsburgh, and I haven't heard anything, I will say that the Pittsburgh Steelers went on a little bit of a streak there where called the Chicago Bears about trading Chase Claypool, ended up trading Chase Claypool. Called the Chicago Bears again about potentially trading up, ended up trading up for Rodgers Jones in the NFL draft, and then the rest is history. Called the Seattle Seahawks, ended up with DK. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I still think it's not. It leans more no than yes, but I do think a lot of things could change, and I think it depends on other teams. What is the market for Jaylen Ramsay? The one thing I'm almost certain of is that the Miami Dolphins are going to trade him. I don't have almost any faith that he'll stay in Miami this season. If he does not have a suitor, if the Miami Dolphins hit training camp or just before the season and teams are not calling, or teams are not making enough of an effort to increase their trade value or their trade package for him, I think the Steelers got a shot. So I think it relies on other teams knowing that they're in the race, but I would not rule Omar Khan out for saying, you're telling me all I got to do is give you a 4th and then a 6th next year? Yeah, all right, we can make that happen. Let's, here you go. Have fun, pal. Let's see let's see where this goes. You want James Pierre in the package? Great. There you go, pal. Have him, I'm just saying, I would not rule where we sit today. I would not rule it out. And I think I was like close to we're just kind of grabbing on to whatever we could. Oh, there's something there. Tangible evidence that the Pittsburgh Steelers at least have the name in the building for Jaylen Ramsay. All right, let's finish up our agenda here. It's Tuesday. Aaron Rodgers spoke today. Jacob's back from West Virginia, sitting in. Did you see this comment? This is maybe one of the best comments we've had today. Jacob is dressed like a guy who has central air. 100%. My pal is sitting, clicking on. It's 70 degrees in your house right now. I guarantee it. It's 70 degrees.
Again, otherwise I would be Frosty the Snowman at the end of the story. I'm just melted, man. There's no.
Have you stepped outside in the last 2 days?
Oh,
besides to drive.
Yes, too much. And again, every single time I'm outside, it's bad. It's bad. Go through a lot of t-shirts, spend a lot of time in the lowest level of the house during these months. So
I'm sitting in the attic right now with 1 AC. We're doing what we can. We're doing what we can. Shout out to Pittsburgh, man. I told myself I'll never complain about the heat because I complain about the snow too much. Mm-hmm. All right, it's Tuesday. It's Overreaction Tuesday. Let's get into it.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
Sometimes it's very subtle. Jacob?
Sometimes.
I'm going to toss it your way. I'm excited for him. What do you got?
Here is my one Aaron Rodgers take for this week. And then I will respect the man's wishes, wink. This will not be Aaron Rodgers' final season in the National Football League. Overreaction or not?
Oh, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. You got to listen to him. Chances are it's the end of it. I think Aaron Rodgers is getting to a point where he not only, and I think it's an overreaction for 2 reasons. One, I think Aaron Rodgers is starting to realize where he is in his NFL career and how difficult things are becoming and how he doesn't want to show up to minicamp and OTAs, but everybody's going to talk about how Aaron Rodgers needs to show up and isn't showing up to OTAs and minicamp for the rest of his career. Every single year from here on out, he will have those headlines if he continues to play. 2, who's calling next season? If Aaron's great, awesome. But you want to know where he's going to play in 2026? Pittsburgh. He's not going to go anywhere else. If Aaron's not great, if Aaron's decent, if Aaron looks like an average quarterback, if Aaron looks like a guy who, yeah, you won 10 games, but you threw 25 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, there's not going to be teams that call. He's going to be at the end of the road. And I think because of that, we listen to him. I think he understands the situation. It might be walking the line, but I'm going to trust him on this one. Aaron Rodgers has not lied about anything. Maybe his marriage, but to be honest with you, I hope that Aaron Rodgers just got married in the woods with like 4 people, his dog being one of them. And that just fits the mold. Like, I love it. It makes, and we should stop worrying about if it's real. The guy says it's real. It's good enough. I'm going to trust him. I'm going to say this one, we're going to start with a walk in the line, but an overreaction.
Fine. Fair enough. I will respect it. And I will reserve my skepticism, and I will not go back in my word, and I'll move on to something totally different. A target of Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
And that is, we talked about the tight ends briefly, and I mentioned it a little bit, but if I were to say, or if I were to find out that the over-under on touchdowns this year for one Pat Freiermuth was 10.5,
okay,
I would be inclined to take the over.
Yeah.
Everything goes right. We're riding the high of optimism. 11 touchdowns, 11 to 15 would not be crazy for Pat Freiermuth to put up once he excels and becomes a focal point in the Steelers offense with Aaron Rodgers under center.
I'm going to let everybody know now. This is a public service announcement. This is a warning to anybody who hates to hear it, which if you are cruel humans, I have one more year, this one and next, to overhype Pat Freiermuth as much as I possibly can. Because after next year, I will give up. I will give up on the belief that Pat is an elite talent. But right now, I'm going to say Pat's had 1 year with Ben Roethlisberger, and then name the quarterbacks and where they are now that he's played with. And we can run through them. You want to run through them real fast? One of them's on the bench in Pittsburgh. The other one's on the bench in Buffalo. The third one is potentially getting traded from the Cleveland Browns after getting traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers after getting traded from the Philadelphia Eagles. One of them's already expected to get benched for a rookie in New York, and the other one is in New York. The Pittsburgh Steelers wanted him, but now reports are saying maybe they didn't. Who knows? He's had 0 quarterbacks outside of Ben that I could say gave him an opportunity. Maybe Aaron is the guy. If he is, awesome. If not, the next quarterback next year in the draft, I will try to believe can give him an opportunity. If that doesn't happen, I'm done with Pat. It's over. I tried. I like him a lot. He's a good dude. I'm just going to have to admit that he's not good. That's what I would have to do. I'm going to say Pat's going over. I'm going to say that's not an overreaction. I think 10 touchdowns is a move for Pat Freiermuth and one you could bank on because Aaron Rodgers is going to really like this guy. And right now, wide receiver 2 is Calvin Austin. And I like Calvin Austin, but he's not catching 10 touchdowns this season. Pat might. I'm going Pat. I'm saying that's not an overreaction. Again, 2 seasons left, and I'm going to overhype the hell out of him.
Wow, this is officially a Pat Freiermuth podcast. Incredible stuff. Okay, wow. I thought that was like kind of crazy, but you consistently show me week after week that my barometer is like a recently fired weatherman's. It's just not on the pulse at all. So let's move to the defensive side of the ball. We talked about slot corner. We've talked about Jaylen Ramsay. I want to try to be more realistic of people who are going to get in the ballpark. I think there's someone that I think our colleague Jack wrote about this recently. But I think there is a cornerback that the Steelers probably have already identified and most likely want to fill the starting slot cornerback position. It might just be a timing issue. And I think it's going to be a reminiscent move of something we've seen before. And I think we're going to see a reunion with Mike Hilton as the slot cornerback in Pittsburgh. Overreaction or not?
I don't think that's an overreaction either. I'm staying on the board of, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are very aware that they're cool with giving Beanie Bishop an opportunity. They're cool seeing what he's got. They're cool with seeing what Dante Kent's got, but they also fully understand that if this entire team looks really good and one position looks really bad, they're going to try to fill that one position. They're going to go out and they're going to do what needs to be done to get a corner. And maybe that's not Jaylen Ramsay. Maybe that's not a big splashy move. Maybe that's a guy that they know and are well aware that is still a reliable starter in the NFL because they've played him twice a season since he's left. And I think Mike Hilton tops that list. Just like Cam Sutton made too much sense last season, Mike Hilton makes too much sense if they need it this season. Again, I think they want to give Beanie like some sort of opportunity, but I do think that it's not going to be much of an opportunity. It's not going to be hey, you have the whole training camp. You might have 2 days of training camp before the Steelers go, all right, we didn't see it. We got to somebody call Mike, get him on the phone right now. I could see that happening. The fact that they've called the Dolphins means that there's some interest there. Their hand has been shown. In the cornerback market, the hand has been shown. I'm going not an overreaction. I honestly, if I had to predict, Beanie Bishop is not the starting slot corner in 2025. That's my prediction.
I think that's, dude, that my next one was if Mike Hilton does not become a member of the Steelers, there's no other move. Let's live in that scenario right now. As the roster currently looks is how the secondary competition will look once everyone's up at St. Vincent's.
Yes.
Maybe this is not an overreaction at all because you maybe hinted at it accidentally. I think it would take 1 day for Dante Kent to become the starting slot cornerback in training camp. I think Beanie Bishop, and I don't think it's crazy when I say that Beanie Bishop is on the thinnest of ice when it comes to players holding on to a position in training camp. So
I agree.
1 day, I think he'd show up, get the benefit of the doubt, and the Steelers, as Omar Khan loves Dante Kent, as we heard in the Standard, he assumes the starting roles immediately.
Okay, so I think that's an overreaction. I don't think that he gets the starting role immediately, but I agree with you that I think of all positions, Beanie Bishop is the guy who, and I don't predict this, but I think that he is the closest person to go from starter to cut this summer. I think that if he doesn't show up and look great, there's no excuse to keep him. You know what I mean? Like potential last year, that was the argument. This year, I don't think it's as strong. So I agree with that. I think it's an overreaction that Dante Kent would be the guy because I don't think they'd put a 7th round pick out there either. I think they learned last year. Like the only reason Beanie started last year is because Cam was suspended. That was it. This year, it won't be Dante Kent. They won't put a 7th round pick out there and say, you've done it. Unless he shows up and becomes Mike Hilton. I don't think you could do that in a year. Or in a day, excuse me. I would say overreaction, but I agree with you. I think Beanie is and that stinks because I like Beanie and I think he does have potential, but I do think that if he doesn't show up, he's the only one of all the starters that I think could go from starter to cut by the end of August.
Wow. Yeah. I think there is no denying that Beanie, our friend, is in for a very real competition just for a job once training camp opens. I have a couple more here. Where are we at on? We have a bunch
on time. We do have one in the comment here that I'll get to and toss your way. Ed D. Overreaction. Aaron Rodgers does great and leads the Steelers to a playoff win and possibly further, and he becomes a Pittsburgh favorite and announces our new 1st round pick in a quarterback in the Pittsburgh NFL draft. A lot going on in this overreaction. Overreaction or not?
This I'm going to say strictly for the bit, this is not an overreaction because it seems like based off of his interview on the Pat McAfee show today, Aaron Rodgers has perhaps replace Mr. Rodgers as the preeminent person with the last name Rodgers in the city. So because of that, he leads a renaissance of Steelers football, Super Bowl, and then like Odysseus returning home passes on the torch to the next 1st round quarterback in the draft in Pittsburgh next year. So yeah, it'll just be a whole heroic circle journey for him. So, be great.
Do you see the shirts in the strip that are Mr. Rodgers, but they're Aaron's face? And they're creepy because they don't look like Aaron Rodgers. They look like a morphed figure of Aaron Rodgers. It's a weird time. All right. Shout out to everybody with the Overreaction Tuesdays. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to start diving into all your guys' questions. So make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes black and gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Alrighty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. I'll say it right now. We need a couple more phone calls for tomorrow's call-in show, so make sure that you're doing that. With that said, let's get into it. Nate Moore is here. Finally made it back to the live. What is up, all Steelers talk? He's got one for us here. Noah, tell me everything you know about Kaleb Johnson. Is he a true Steeler, and will his Steelers career play out better than Najee Harris's did? If I had to predict, which this is all it is, this is a prediction, I would say yes. I think Kaleb Johnson's a better running back than Najee Harris is. I like Najee Harris coming out of Alabama, but to be honest, I love Kaleb Johnson coming out of Iowa. And the running back class this year was loaded with studs. I think he's got great vision. I think he's got incredible game speed, which people will say, oh, he's not that fast. Dude, he's game speed's fast. Like, he's going to outrun you if it's you and him down the sideline. I think he's got decent hands. He's got to work on his pass blocking, but I think he'll get there. I think the best thing about Kaleb Johnson to me is the first time I ever introduced myself to him. We were walking into the facility and I said, hey, what's going on, man? I'm Noah Strackbine. I'm from On SI. And we're talking and I said, what do you, is Pittsburgh like Iowa? And he starts talking football as if I asked, are the Pittsburgh Steelers the same as Iowa? And he's like, nah, it's different. And he starts giving me the rundown. And I'm like, I just kind of meant like, is there as much corn out here as there is in Iowa? And he was just like, oh yeah, no, definitely not. He's like, but football, man. So I'm going to say yes on this one. I'm a big Kaleb Johnson guy, as everybody knows. And I think his upside is pretty massive.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his also. I think my only question and where he might not exceed what Najee did is, they threw Najee immediately into the fire as a rookie. Yeah. And they were like, you're just going to take every handoff and there's no one in front of you to help. So just get to 1,000 yards. He still managed to do it. So you got to give him his credit there. So I think with Jaylen Warren being involved and planning to be so heavily featured, I don't think Kaleb Johnson has the opportunity to be a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie. Yeah. But beyond that, I think he can really become a dual threat running back that is a threat in the running and passing game. So yeah, I think long-term, yes, rookie year probably will not exceed what Najee did as a rookie.
No, and to be honest, Najee's rookie year was his best year. He looked really good as a rookie. I think he got beat up a little bit, but I don't expect the same from Kaleb Johnson. Chris here. Guys, I am cautiously optimistic that if Rodgers can use the whole field to open our offense, that the run game will be amazing this year. Just feeding off it. I agree, my friend. I think that Aaron Rodgers and what the passing game does is going to work. My biggest thing, though, is that the Steelers' running game is going to open up the passing game. And that is something that they're really looking to build on. You got to give your quarterback an opportunity to have less defense around him. And that, my friend, is based on the running game. If you could get Kaleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren working and they got to stack the box or they fall for a play action, DK is running down the sideline. You know what I mean? Calvin Austin just burned somebody up the seam. Like, there are so many options when you have a strong running game and not a predictable running game. And I think that's what you're getting here if Kaleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren work.
For sure. Yeah, it can't be the other way around, unfortunately, Chris. I think it has to be run game first to open up the passing game, and then they kind of work in tandem to sort of keep improving upon one another. So, yeah, there has to be Jaylen Warren and Kaleb Johnson setting the tone, which I think is very, very possible with the duo in the backfield.
Yeah, huge. And I think, again, if Aaron clicks and things work out, you have a complete offense for the first time in quite some time. Truly. Macaroni salad just coming in late, but Rodgers on Pat. I am stoked. It was a good episode. It was a good interview. I think the last time Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, I was like, all right, this is weird. There's like nothing to talk about. You're just kind of like ripping the media, which, like, I understood. I get it. I'm never going to sit here and be like, oh man, dude, don't rip the media. I could care less, man. I like, do your thing. this time it felt like there was context. It felt like there was something to talk about. It felt like there was hype to give. And I think he sold it. I think he sold it. All right. Chris has another one here. If you are drafting a quarterback for the Steelers in 2026, who would you pick? An athletic quarterback like the South Carolina kid or a pocket passer like Arch Manning? I think Arch Manning's got a lot of speed to him, but I do think that, Lenora Sellers is a guy who moves. I'm going athletic quarterback all day in the NFL anymore. I just think that's the future. I think even if he's not super athletic, you got to be able to be nimble. You got to be able to run for 15, 20 yards if you need to. I like a Josh Allen type. I like a Lamar Jackson type. I would go athletic over a pocket passer in today's game. And I think Mike Tomlin would feel the same way. Do you feel different?
I don't feel differently. I do want to say that I think Arch Manning, in the limited sample size that we've seen of him at Texas, can move. He's not like Peyton or Eli in terms of athleticism. I would give him a little bit more credit than that. But yes, absolutely, Lenora Sellers has more upside due to his athleticism. And there was actually a really good piece that I was reading. I think it was in The Athletic about how he started as like a 3-star recruit out of high school.
Yeah.
Very little Yeah. And, he's now worked his way up into being truly one of the most talked about quarterback prospects in the NCAA this year. So, I mean, I'm not saying Arch Manning does not have a story of like working hard and working his way up, but I do really think that there's something a little bit extra to someone who has had to overcome so many different obstacles, and that underdog sort of mindset and situation can really bring out something special in a player. So I go Lenora Sellers right now. So much time to be swayed differently.
Yeah, I agree. Does it change your opinion at all of Arch Manning when you found out that he doesn't take advice from Peyton and Eli? Because to me, I said, what are we doing here, pal? Stop. This is not a good thing. Go call your uncles, okay? And talk to them every single day. Did it change your mind?
No, I just think that's like naivete, to be quite honest. Like, he's just like, like, if he gets to the NFL, of course he's going to have to call his uncles if he gets to the NFL. They're the only ones who could, that could actually impart anything worth anything to him once that part of his career begins. But for right now, I mean, he's been carving his own path and trying to like separate himself from the Mannings of the last generation. So I understand the sort of like desire to do that, but I mean, yeah, for right now, it doesn't bother me because he's been performing well enough and showing that he is a significant prospect for the NFL. If he's still like that once he's on an NFL team, then I'm going to be like, okay, we got to have a conversation about like sort of taking advantage of the resources around you and how to best sort of maximize opportunities. But for right now, I'm just like, all right, kid, let's pull it together a little bit here.
I agree. Could you imagine if he showed up in Pittsburgh? Yeah, I don't really talk to my uncles about football. Why? Why? I don't understand. If Tom Brady was my uncle, if Peyton Manning was my uncle, I'd be like, you know what, guys? I think you know something about what I'm trying to do here. You got any advice, pal? I just feel like that's the best way to go about it. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Enigma After Dark. Noah and Jacob. I know Rodgers says he won't feel any pressure or have anything to prove, but shouldn't there be seeing as how we've done more with less at the quarterback position? I think Aaron has something to prove. I just don't think he wants to admit it. I don't think that he has. I think the way that it's always worded to him is like, do you feel you have to go win a Super Bowl? And he's always like, no, like, because I don't think that changes the legacy. I think it helps, but I don't think it changes the legacy of his career. I think he's still viewed as one of the greatest of all time. And I think he knows that. But I don't think he plays football if he doesn't want to go win it. If there's not everything in him that wants to go win it. So he's not playing football to be like, man, I can't wait to get sacked 5 times and beat up and feel like complete garbage by the end of the season, but to have fun with my friends that I don't even know yet. No, he's playing because he wants to win it, and he's going to put everything into trying to win it. And I think that so while I don't think he's saying it publicly, I do think that, it's his driving force this season.
Yeah. Otherwise, I just I do not understand why else you would continue playing the game.
No, could you imagine?
He's not he's not hard up for cash or anything like that. And even if it was, he could have taken a far richer contract, I imagine, with a different organization if money was ever higher on the priority list, which he showed it wasn't. Beyond that, he clearly is motivated to be, excuse me, a top performer in his job, in his profession, and that means winning with the Steelers. So yeah, I think he definitely wants to maintain a demeanor that he is doing this just for the personal satisfaction of it. But I mean, yeah, he wants to win. What I will also posit is I don't think he feels any pressure from the organization, the Steelers organization, that is, to bring a championship specifically to Pittsburgh, or to like reinstate the winning culture for the Steelers. I think he wants to win because he's a competitor, because he's a 21-year NFL veteran, not because he feels a duty or sort of obligation to the Steelers franchise this year. So
yeah, I agree. And I think that helps, to be honest. Like, I think the whole pressure of like, we got to do this. Like, okay, Aaron's just coming in here to be like, I would like to win a Super Bowl again. That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's see if we could do it. And taking what it gets to get there while ignoring the noise and I think a bit of the distraction that comes with all the pressure that's been built up around the story. Cody Silva's got a great one here. Aaron Rodgers talked about his dog a lot. Do you think his dog is a baby, or am I reaching? I felt like him and Pat were coding. That would be so awesome, Cody. And I love the conspiracy theory. I love it so much. We all know I'm a give me my tinfoil hat. I'm here to stay forever. However, they showed his dog, and I'm pretty certain that Apollo is Apollo. I'm pretty sure the dog is a dog. He looked very cute with the picture of Aaron on the beach with Mike. I just, sounds like a good dog. Sounds like a good dog. So I don't think it's a baby. I think he would have made that public knowledge, to be honest with you, or at some time will if we're wrong. But I would say dog is the dog. That's my guess.
As someone who has two dogs and does refer to them as the girls.
Yeah. I do the same thing with cats. It's way weirder with cats.
Yeah, I mean, I think pet parents do tend to really put human sort of like qualities, traits, descriptions onto our pets. So I didn't feel like that was like a crazy sort of thing. I just think it's even funnier that, and more telling, that we have a quarterback who's just, history, nature, character, whatever you want to call it, sort of elicits like Cody's not like, he's not way out in left field by suggesting this. You know what I mean? Like,
no way.
It's not like we're like, dude, Cody, just like can it, bro. Like, that's just like wild that you'd even suggest it. Like, if he's married, which again, like you could have skepticism about his personal life at this point.
Yeah.
And it's possible that we wouldn't know. Possible we wouldn't know he has a child. I don't know. I don't care until it's brought up in this context, and then we're like, well, I actually didn't really hear anything definitive one way or the other. Oh man.
So we might as well skeptical. I agree. Shout out. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome to have a quarterback like that, to be honest. Like, let's just play the game. I'm having a fun time. You know what I'm saying? Come week 4, when we're talking about football, if it continues, bit of a distraction. But in June 24th, I'm having a blast with it, because there's nothing. If I'm not doing this, I'm scrolling on my phone looking at TikToks of football conversations from like 6 months ago, and it's just not. It's not the same. Shout out, my friend. Shout out. YouTube user here. Why is it so difficult for a guard and tackle to switch and play other positions? A lot of it's footwork and just hand placement and leverage and the whole, like, if you're playing tackle, your box, your surrounding area is much wider. How well you have to be able to stop somebody who bends and is more athletic than you is a completely different situation than standing in front of somebody and saying Dexter Lawrence has to get through me right now. You know what I mean? And he's got to get through me because there's somebody next to me on both sides that he has to also beat. So it's not going to be the same. So I think it comes down to athleticism, but I also think that a lot of it is capable. Like, if Rodgers doesn't work at left tackle, I'd give him a shot at left guard and see if he works there. And I think that if you had to bounce Troy from left tackle to guard, I think it would work just fine. So I think that it's able to do, but I don't think it's easy, because you're essentially playing a different position. Like, how you have to approach it and beat the guys on the other side of you are completely different from guard to tackle.
Yeah, I mean, the physics are crazy different. Like, I mean, just think about Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and just sort of
Yeah.
like where their
Yes.
centers of gravity are. Think about how low TJ Watt can get and sort of the angle he can put himself at whenever he is rushing the quarterback at the edge. Like, you have to totally sort of spread out where your center of gravity is, distribute differently. Like the hand, like Noah mentioned, the footwork and hand, like the tackle position is truly a wild beast because of the freakish athletes that you are going up against on the edge. Not that the interior rushers aren't impressive and dominant, Aaron Donald, right? Like there's obviously super athletic, dominant interior linemen, but it's a different technique. It is probably slightly easier, I would gather, to go from tackle to guard than vice versa.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a totally different animal. It's a totally different like footwork, framework. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like it should be easy. Like it's just 5 guys on the line, right? But it's just the inner workings, the inner battles happening are crazy difficult and on an insanely like day to day, it would be drastically different. So,
I agree.
it's a difficult thing. I don't want to undercut how difficult that transition would be.
Yeah, I agree. And you are right. It is easier to go tackle to guard than guard tackle. It's just, again, like you have to be so much more athletic and quick on the outside and where you come off. And it's a totally different game. All right. Maddie's got one for us. 2 questions. Do you think Arthur Smith takes a leap as a head coach? And 2, now hearing how Rodgers speaks about Will Howard and wanting to set him up to be the next guy, does that change your mind? If so, why and why not? I think we addressed the first one earlier, but I will say that I'm leaning towards yes. Do I think he's going to be the guy? No. Am I leaning more towards, there's a bigger chance that it happens? Yeah. I thought the chance was almost 0. 11:30 this morning. I think right now it's, a little higher than that for sure. And I like Aaron Rodgers making it a challenge. I could care less what he says about how good Will is. I only care about him making it a challenge to make him good, because to me, that's something that he could accomplish and I wouldn't put it past him. Arthur Smith, on the other hand, I think it's early to tell, but I do think that if he gets an opportunity, he will take a head coaching gig. I don't think he'd take it in college. I think it'd have to be in the NFL and it'd have to be the right circumstance. But I think he would have taken the Jets job if it became available to him. I just don't know. He'd have to have one crazy year to be able to make that jump. Your thoughts on both of these?
Man, Maddie, I hate to be so pessimistic when it comes to Will Howard. Truly,
Yeah,
like,
you are the Will Howard not going to make it fan club right now.
Well, yeah, and I hate to be such a bad guy in this situation. Truly, it's just that does nothing in terms of like I've now seen that he can be a starting quarterback because on the field, the investment from Aaron Rodgers is paying off. I think it is now more likely that we could see that, and maybe we will be given more opportunities to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And, you have to put stock in what a 4-time NFL MVP says about another football player. He clearly has a perspective that is far superior and more well-tuned than mine. So I'm not going to dismiss that at all. I still don't have any more faith in Will Howard as the long-term starting quarterback, the guy. I still think he's a long-term backup right now, willing to be impressed and willing to have my mind changed whenever that happens. But I don't think so. And I think Arthur Smith is going to be a head coach again. Not sure when. But I mean, I think his reputation around the league is incredibly positive, despite being fired from his last head coaching gig. But like that, time heals all wounds as far as that's concerned. So he'll be a head coach again, probably in the next couple of years. I don't know if it'll be 2026, but soon-ish.
I agree. And I'm very excited for us to go to training camp. And I hope and pray that it's the best day Will Howard has, just so that you have to go on the pod and be like, all right, guys, I think he's the next franchise quarterback of Pittsburgh Steelers. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Then I'll just be like, oh, remember when I said how good he was going to be in April?
Jacob is quickly becoming the gaslighter of all Steelers talk. I think I'm a fan of it. I think I'm a big fan of it. 2 follow-ups here. One from Eddie. Hopefully not, but what if next year's quarterback draft is a flop? There's no telling if he'll be the one. And then Maddie followed up as well. What happens if Sellers, Manning, and others don't come out next year? Then what? You look at it, and that's the thing is, this is where it leans in Will Howard's favor. If it's going to happen, we have literally zero idea. And a lot would have to happen and a lot would have to go wrong. I don't think any Steelers fan should be rooting for next year's draft class to stink, because I think that makes it more difficult on the Steelers you want options. But that's where it comes. Like, if next year's draft class is awful, Will Howard probably is the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, or at least gets an opportunity to showcase himself as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do I think that works out? I have no idea. And I wouldn't bet on it, but I do think that if nobody else, if it's stunk, if it's this year's draft class next year, which again, you shouldn't be hoping for, but if it is, yeah, I think Will Howard gets his opportunity. I think at that point, you might as well give it to him over Daniel, unless, Anthony Richardson's the other guy, then you have a competition. But I do think either way, Will Howard's involved in it next season if they don't draft somebody, because for whatever reason, the whole draft class decides we're done. Football is not our thing. Retirement's a real thing. We're done. We're staying in college.
Oof. Oh, gosh. I'm like shivering thinking about Anthony Richardson and Will Howard battling out for the 2026 starting quarterback. Yeah. If Lenore Sellers is a coffin flop, or if there is some sort of situation where they don't come out next year, I think the Steelers are in the same exact situation that they were in to start this offseason, last offseason, and really the one before. They've just been stuck in a quarterback purgatory for 4 years now, and Aaron Rodgers has suddenly lifted them out of it for the time being. But if they have no starting quarterback again, this time next year, the offseason for 2026, then they're doing the same exact thing that we have seen them do for the last few years, and they've still managed to have winning records despite it. It's not going to make anyone happy. I would certainly not be pleased, but it wouldn't be uncharted waters. It wouldn't be unfamiliar territory. Sure. It would be another year of the Steelers doing the same sort of thing again. So I would not be totally thrown off by any of that happening. That being said, the class is going to be good in 2026. I have full faith in that.
I also do. It looks like there are a few draft classes that are as bad as last year's, and I think this year's is going to be totally different. Totally different. All right, couple of housekeeping things. Eddie the First, Pat needs to have you on the show, Noah. I just would like to make this official that if Pat McAfee ever does listen to this podcast, which I don't think he's going to, but if he ever does, I will say, get me on. Every time I see Kaboli doing an interview and has his phone little set up somewhere, I walk behind it casually just to make sure that I look like a weirdo in the background, because it's Kaboom. And if it was anybody else, I'd be professional. One time I walked by and yelled, "Kaboom, is that a hot dog in your pocket?" And found out he was on a work meeting. So shout out to Mark Kaboli. Doesn't have that job anymore, actually, which I don't think I was the part of that, but everything happens for a reason. Shout out, my friend. Chef Salad, sorry I missed the show. This is the year of 30. I'm pretty sure it's his birthday because he said this yesterday, that it was his last Monday at 29. Shout out, happy birthday, my friend, if that is true. I think that's the housekeeping, and I've said this 8 times already. So shout out count is at 6. I think we're at 14 at this point. So shout out, my friends. All right, let's finish it up with these ones. Anthony, Rooney walks up to you and says, rename the stadium. What are you going with? I have an easy answer, so I'll let you go first.
Oh, wow. I would probably be you can rename it Heinz Field and restore glory.
Took my answer. Easy answer.
I did this. I said, you go, I was gesticulating for you to go first. If it wasn't that, I would rename it after Franco Harris or something, honestly.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I think that'd be cool. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah.
I'd go, the easy answer is Heinz Field. You know what I mean? Yeah. Heinz Field, and then underneath it, it should say bring them back to Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Something like that, because they are based in Ohio, and that's not a good thing. But it's easily Heinz Field. Easily Heinz Field. Footballing, yo, what's up, guys? I want to know if some crazy reason we don't sign TJ, who's our next option we take on here? If they don't re-sign TJ, I'm going to be honest, the name I'm going to toss it, which they are going to re-sign TJ. But if they didn't, in some crazy hypothetical, Trey Hendrickson's the name to watch. I just think it is. Yeah. Like, I just
Yep.
think you go out and you get that guy. The Steelers love him. He loves the Steelers. Why wouldn't it's an easy answer. Now, you might have to give up too much to go get Trey Hendrickson, and maybe that doesn't work. Maybe the Bengals suck, but at some point he's going to become available for either cheap or a free agent because things are going to get really bad really fast. And he would be my answer unless you have something different.
No, that you 100% took mine. I would just to see maybe if you could get, Shamar Stewart too while he's there. Can we finagle that?
Watch
somehow?
Shamar
Like,
Stewart and be like, hey man, you could come here and sit on the bench, not
Just
show up
sit.
to our mini camp and then talks. I've never heard of a rookie talking so much smack on his team ever in my life. Crazy.
The circus. Let's just let this season just go absolutely banana bonkers, and let's just it'll be Uncle Baby Billy Bible bonkers, and it'll just be crazy, and it'll just be wild, and we'll just go for it. Maybe we'll win a Super Bowl out of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
who knows?
I agree. I love it so much. All right, and then that was actually the question that we were supposed to finish up with. So we'll finish it up with this one. Jamal, I had to learn to listen to you because I knew in my heart GP was staying, but you called it early. I will say this, okay? From what I'm hearing, and this is very early, but from what I'm hearing is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are calling teams about wide receivers, but there's a real chance, okay, that Calvin Austin is wide receiver 2, and the move they make is not on the offensive side of the ball, but it's on the defensive side of the ball before the end of training camp. That's early. And things could change, but it's June 24th, and that's the report I'll finish off with this one with. There's a real chance, and you have a smile on your face as I say this, that the addition is on defense and not on offense. And I don't have a name, but I have a couple of names that have been tossed out, but I'm not confident enough to toss a name out. But that's the early listens. Go ahead. What are you laughing at?
I remember someone, his name might be Jacob, saying that it would be the most likely option that the Steelers entered this season with Calvin Austin as wide receiver 2.
It's true.
I don't know. A memory stirs. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see if that comes to fruition. We'll see.
They love him. They love Calvin Austin. Again, things
They
could
do.
change, but the options are slim right now, and there are some names on defense that could be a surprising one. I'm just saying. That's my report to finish off this Tuesday. Shout out count finishes at 9. My guy. What a day. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Please, please, please go hit those Apple Podcast downloads and give us a 5-star review. We're getting there, 4.6. Would like to be at 4.7 before training camp. That would be pretty awesome. As always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. And with that said, we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg.